Hello, welcome back.
Hello everyone, and welcome to session 2, Identity was the breach, Identity Access Management, Cloud Access and Privilege Abuse, 2005 year in review. So the core idea today is simple and it's a little bit uncomfortable. In 2025, a huge percentage of serious incidents weren't about breaking in. They were about logging. Attackers didn't need to defeat your firewall if they could defeat your identity surface, like credentials, sessions, OAuth, grants, refresh tokens over privileged roles. And that shift matters because when identity is compromised, your controls often step aside politely. The attack traffic looks legitimate, the permissions are valid, the audit trails exist, but there are noise, and most teams aren't instrumented to see the story quickly enough. So my goal is fractional level. So the attack mechanism we saw repeatedly in 2005 use two real-world case studies and then translate everything into a 90 days action plan you can start on Monday. So let's see the structure so you know exactly what we're going. So here's the roadmap. We'll start with the patterns that dominated identity compromise across cloud and SaaS in 2025, token theft, OAuth abuse, and SaaS trust change, overprivileged roles, and how attackers chain that into privilege escalation and data export. Then we will go into two case studies. Salesloft drift, Salesforce, data theft via compromised auth tokens, and PowerSchool, where a simple portal leaking MFA led to massive exposure. Then, what identity first first security should look like for a global distributed orgs across Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and SaaS. And finally, I'll close with a practical 90 days plan, measurable prioritization, and realistic. So this isn't executable level strategy language. This is what do we implement and what we on alert on. So let's start with the 2025 reality. Why didn't it become the fastest path to data? Here's the 2025 reality. If the attacker has a valid identity, most controls quickly step aside. This is the cloud SaaS model. Identity becomes the control plane, and identity compromise became the fastest path to data, especially when tokens are treated as trusted. Third-party integration are treated as trusted, and permissions drift are everyone can do everything. Four patterns show it up again and again. Stolen credentials, info stealers, password reuse, spraying, and importantly, SSO turns one login into many apps. Unsuccessful credentials give your email, file, CRM, ticket, CI/CD, sometimes even cloud console access. Second is session token theft. This is the big MFA bypass story. If I steal a session cookie or refresh token, I may not need to log in again. I just become you. So the third is OAuth and SaaS supply chain abuse. Compromised OAuth tokens mean the app is used, and one integration can become a bridge into hundreds of tenants. The fourth one is overprivileged roles. This is the accelerator. If permissions are too broad, the attacker doesn't need creatively. They just click export, create key, assign role, consent app, disable logs, whatever the overprivileged identity do. So the important mindset shift is identity compromise are changed, not one event. Let's make the change explicit because breaking and link cuts the blast radius. So let's continue with the most identity breach aren't one event, they are the chains. So step one, initial access. phish, info stealer, password reuse, credential, or a foothold. Step 2, establish session, still cookie, still refresh token, still a token issued by IDP. Step 3, escalate privilege. This is where overprivileged roles and OAuth scopes matter. If the identity can grant itself more access, you are in trouble. And step 4, exfiltrate data, export APIs, bulk downloads, SaaS object exports. This is often the loud state, but it's late. And step 5, the last one, app tokens, app keys, secrets pulled from data. This is how one breach become another breach. Where defenders win, the 2025 lessons. Make phishing harder. FIDO2, WebAuthn, conditional access, device posture, make token replay noise and short-lived, till studying admin, sharing OAuth scopes and govern apps. If you remember one thing, identity defense is one control. It's breaking the chain. So now let's zoom into the first major pattern, token theft, the MFA bypass story of 2025. Token theft is why we have two MFA. Stop it being the end of the conversation. Here is how it works in practice. A user opens a perfect login page, often a reverse proxy, advisory in the middle phishing. It looks really real because it's literally relating to the real IDP. So the user completes MFA normally, nothing fails, but the attacker captures the session cookie. Then the attacker replay the cookie and become the user, often with no MFA prom. And refresh tokens are a long session to keep access alive across time zones. That matters globally because attackers can operate from whatever while the session remains valid. So what breaks it? Phishing resistant MFA, FIDO2 WebAuthn, especially for privileged user first, short the session's lifetime, and require re-authentication for sensitive actions like export, admin change, key creations, conditional access, device compliance, GeoIP risk, impossible travel, no bad networks, detect token anomalies, a new device, new geo, and mass export should trigger session revocation quickly. So the message isn't MFA is useless. The message MFA is necessary, but session and token security is the fight now. So let's put numbers behind the idea using incident response data. Yes, MFA didn't disappear. Attackers routed around it. Across real-world incident response datasets from 2004 to 2005, token theft dominates MFA bypass. This is extremely useful internally because it gives your Congress justification for investments like phishing resistant MFA, session control, instrument the token lifecycle. So what? Stop treating MFA as done. Move from MFA enabled to MFA resilience against token theft. Prioritize FIDO2 WebAuthn for admins, IT help desk, high risk functions like exporting mailboxes or mass downloading from Drive, SharePoint, or CRM. Instrument the chain, sign in, token is usance, and sensitive API calls. If you can connect those dots, you can see token abuse fast enough. Build response muscle. Revoke, refresh tokens, and terminate sessions quickly. Defense tip: if you can't move to FIDO2 fast, reduce sessions lifetime and enforce the ready of for exports and admin actions. That alone cuts the attacker usable window. So now the second big pattern: OAuth abuse, the trust tab problem. OAuth tokens are build credentials. If a token is stolen, the app is effectively you. These were modern SaaS attackers did scary because it stops looking like a hacker. It looks like a normal integration doing normal work. Common failure modes we saw. Users can grant risky apps without admin review. Shadow auth there. Or overbroad scopes. Read all mail, export CRM objects. Long live refresh tokens with weak monitoring. And one vendor breach cascades across many tenants globally. Controls attack should matters. Admin console, concern workflows, and the VTT app catalog, scope minimalization at app specific list privilege, token lifecycle governance, expiry, rotation, or rapid revocation, detection, unused exports, a new token scratch, a new GUI IP. This is why I say treat integration as shared infrastructure. They are part of your identity perimeter now. So let's ground this with a case study that made this painful real in 2025. Salesloft drift, Salesforce data theft via OAuth tokens. The point here isn't Salesforce got hacked. The point is the mechanic. Token abuse against a drastic integration. In August 2025, the group tracked it as ANS 6395 was observed using compromised OAuth tokens tied to the Salesforce Drift integration to perform unauthorized exports across many Salesforce customers instances. Key details to focus on: observe campaign window. Uh, 8th August to I don't remember. Uh, for the next 10 days, let's say. Access via compromised tokens tied to the integration, large-scale exports from Salesforce customer instances. After exfiltrations, attackers reportedly search for secrets in the data, AWS key, passwords, Snow, Snowflake tokens, because data theft is often just step one. What is global lesson? SaaS integrations are shared infrastructure across regions, meaning one trust integration can create cross-tenant risk at the global scale. Token-based access bypass MFA, no password prompt is required. If the token is valid, the app is authorized, so data theft enables follow-on compromise. And secrets found in exported data can be reused against other cloud services. So what defensive moves matter it? Inventory and review connected apps, not just Salesforce, also Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. Anywhere OAuth exists, this exists. Require admin consent, block user self consent by default, especially for high risk scopes, alert on new grants and unusually large export activities. The combination is key. A new grant, then an export spice in a high signal indicator. Practice a kill switch. You shouldn't have a muscle memory playbook. Revoke tokens and remove integration quickly and globally. If your org has never rehearsed removing a key integration in a controlling way, do it, because in a real accident, the decision is emotionally slow. And the final point, this wasn't a novel exploit. It was identity trust being explored. So the transition now it's no. So now let's go to a different kind of case study, not auth sophistication, just a single missing control with massive impact. Oh, my mistake. I'm so sorry. Here we are. PowerSchool is a reminder that sometimes the lesson is boring, and that's why it's powerful. A single weak portal becomes a massive explosive event. What was reported? threat actor accessed PowerSchool data through the PowerSource support portal. PowerSchool reported told to K-12 dive the portal like the multi-factor authenticator. Exposure including student, staff people, and some records, and medical data, and many others. X then discovered this 28th December 2024 and published disclosed January 2025. The cloud security lesson. Internal portals are high value assets. Protect them like production. You can't have MFA everywhere with exceptions because attackers have the exception. So here the practical audit checklist you can take home. This week checks support portals, admin consoles, MFA enforced, conditional access, contractor and vendor accounts, less privileged expire dates, break last account, monitor it and protect it with a strongest MFA, ideal phishing resistance, and data export endpoints, rate limits, alerts, approval workflow. If you want identity first to win, that doesn't require a new tool. Eliminate MFA gaps and standardize access policies across every admin surface. Now we connect this to the accelerator privilege because as an attacker is seen, overprivilege makes it fast and cheap. So overprivilege is what turns identity compromise into enterprise compromise. In Q3 2025, Relia Quest report a big chunk of true positive cloud alerts traced back to identity issues, and they also highlight the reality that most cloud identities are overprivileged. When you combine those facts, you get the 2025 pattern. After one credential or taking compromised, privilege escalation is cheap and fast. So how do we shrink escalation's path? Zero standing privilege for admins, just-in-time elevation with approvals, automate list privilege, policies from actual usage logs. If someone hasn't used permission for X in 19 days, remove it. Separate duties by regional project. Avoid global admins by default. Global logs need global guardrails, but not global privilege. Kill dormant identities and log live access keys. Rotate, move to short-lived tokens where is possible. Monitor privilege grants, role change, policy edits, consent events. This should be high signal detections. So what does identity first security actually looks like in 2026? If we are being honest and practical, identity first security means treating identity as a control plane for humans and not humans' identity. I like to frame it as a build, measure, operate. For build, phishing resistant MFA for admins and high risk hubs, conditional access, device posture, risk scoring, GIP rules, app governance, admin concerts, approved catalog, scope review, PAM just in time, short-lived elevation with a strong audit trails, and secret hiding. Short-lived tokens rotation for secrets in the place data lives. Measure, pick metrics you can actually track for percentage of a privileged user on a phishing resistant MFA, mean time to revoke sessions, of active OAuth apps with high risk scopes, of standing admins and the long-lived access key. Operate centralized identity telemetry like identity like a SaaS and a cloud control plane. Detect export spikes and unusual of activity. Standardized help desk identity recovery across regions, redundant and social research. Run token theft, tabletop exercise, and practice session eviction. Have a vendor kill switch playbook. And I'll say it bluntly, if I can't authenticate, it can be abused. So now let's make the operational. What exactly should your SOC log alert on and automate? If identity is the breach, your SOC need identity first telemetry. Minimum logs, IDP sign-ins, geo device error score, token events, auth grants, refreshing usage, privilege change like role assignments, policy edits, SACS exports, bulk download, API exports. Alerts that matter patterns, not single alerts. New auth app grant and unusual API call within 1 hour. New device, a new geo, and a new admin action. Impossible travel like concurrent session. Mass export from CRM drive mailbox. And response playbook steps should be reheated. Revoke refresh tokens and terminate sessions. Disable account, reset credentials, require MFA re-enrollment, remove suspicious OAuth app and revoke concerns or wide, rotate keys, secrets, found if exfil data, and a key mindset. The breach isn't they login. The breach is they stayed in and exposed. So optimize the eviction speed and export detection. Now I'll give you the promised piece. A 90 days plan you can start immediately. So here's the practical 90 days plan. Don't try everything. Pick the 5 or 7 actions with the highest blast radius reduction for your organization. To the first 30 days, visibility at quick wins, inventory of apps and scopes in key tenants, Microsoft 365, Workspace, Salesforce. Block user self-concern or require admin approval for higher scopes. Identify standing admins and break glass accounts. Protect with the strongest MFA. Turn on export audit login in critical SaaS ships to CM. As a second step, hardening. Roll out phishing resistant MFA and to privileged users and IT helpdesk first. Reduce sessions lifetime. Enforce reauth. Enforce reauth for exports admin actions. Implement just-in-time and PAM, privileged access management for admin elevation. Start with cloud control plane. Rotate expire long-live access keys. Move to short-lived credentials. And as a third step, create token theft and auth compromise IR runbook. Run the tabletop with global stakeholders, measure time to revoke sessions, automate detections, new auth grant, export spike, and risky geo. Establish quarterly access reviews and governance candidates. If you do some of these items, you'll reduce the identity breach change at multiple links. Harder initial access, harder persistence, less privilege, faster eviction, less exfilled. And let me close with the main takeaways and then we'll do the QA. Takeaways. Identity was a breach. Define identity like production infrastructure. Assume credentials with leak. Design the fast containment. Session revocation, less privilege. MFA necessary but not sufficient. So token theft is a default bypass. Treat OAuth apps and the integration as non-human identities with blast radius. Zero starting privilege and app governance at high leverage with wins for 2026. I don't know. I'm talking very fast, I think. Have to take questions.
Well, this is excellent. First of all, great job. And So
Thank
yes,
you,
if
Philip.
anybody has questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll get to them. But I definitely agree that the identity is is really a big thing. It's sort of who, are you who you say you are, and how do companies control that? I think you've given both the problem and the solution, and we did cover kind of a lot of ground. So maybe we can kind of tease it apart a little bit more. And also, can we think about some, and this, I welcome all our speakers to comment on this, but can we think about some real world examples and real world breaches that we've seen 2025, or sort of just, generally speaking, the big ones where that identity kind of caused a big problem? Like, what were some of the bigger um, stories that we've seen?
Hmm, let me think. Let me- well, I want to say something. Hmm, Let me include something more like a reality check and audience calibration. So let me include this one. So before we go deeper and quick calibration, when I say identity branch, I'm not just talking about the passwords. I'm talking about anything that can authenticate credential sessions, refresh token, auth brands, service principals, API keys. And in 2025, the attacker didn't need to win against your endpoint protection or your firewall. They need to win against your identity life cycle. So if you remember one model um, from this session, identity compromise and excessive privilege and weak visibility is equal with fast quit breach. If any one of these is missing, the blast reducer drops hard. And also, I want to mention from the token theft explained, let me say, to teaching to our SOC. So a lot of teams still think MFA bypass means the attacker guessed the code. Most of the time, it's not that. The flow is user logs into a perfect phishing page, usually an adversary in the middle reverse proxy. The user completes MFA normally, nothing still looks broke. The attacker steals the session cookie, the access token, the refresh token. So the attacker replace it, and now they are the user, often without MFA prompt. So the question becomes, what are we really defending? Not login. We're defending the session legitimacy, let's say. So that changes your control. Move admins to we can protect ourselves from move admins to phishing resistant MFA, reduce the session lifetime, like we said before, and alert on token replace signals. That's something that we don't say often to new device, new geo or weird ASN, unusual client tab or unusual token use pattern. So if your software say can't see session creation or token use and sensitive action, you're blind to the real tag. Um, and that that other I want to mention, it's regarding the 90 seconds from the case study for Salesforce OAuth. Uh, it's the scenario is you get an alert, new auth app grants access. In with 10 minutes, there is a spike in Salesforce data exports. Microsoft extended the mails, reads, Google Drive downloads. So the question one is, what's your first action? Containment, containment, not investigation. Here's, so the correct muscle memory is to revoke token sessions immediately for the affected users or app, disable of app, revoke consent tenant wide, freeze high risk accounts until an identity is proven. What's the question? As a second question, what do you check next for a blast radius? which user granted this app, which scopes were granted, what was accessed, exports, mailbox rigs, driver downloads. Any secret is access data, keys in a CRM nodes, uh, password in docs. What do you prevent recurrency? Lockdown user consent, redundant scope, require admin approval, add detection and OAuth granted exposed data. And I don't know. Uh,
Can I jump in with a couple?
yes?
Okay, so and this is just me, just kind of reviewing some of our initial research material. So just I'm just thinking of some of the big breaches in 2025 that we have seen related to this, so you can kind of expand on it. But Change Healthcare, which is part of United Health, had stolen credentials and lack of MFA on a customer support portal system gave initial access, leading to disruption of claims processing um, for a rail handling roughly 15 billion annual transaction, exposure of data of about 190 million individuals. PowerSchool style K-12 platform breach, a young attacker used stolen support portal credentials with no FFA to access decades of sensitive student and staff records, including Social Security, medical, special education data, then attempted to repeat extortion. SK Telecom, multi-year compromise of core systems involved plain text admin credentials and weak protections. Use of USIM, IMSI authentication data for 23 to 27 million subscribers, turning national scale identity infrastructure into an access point for surveillance and fraud. We talked about in the first session the Salesloft RIP sales author O campaign, the UNC 6395, where attackers abused or compromised Auth integration to steal refresh tokens and log into hundreds of Salesforce customer tenants, exfiltrating CRM data, and then hunting for cloud keys, AWS, Snowflake, Azure, OpenAI inside those records. Another Gainsight Salesforce OAuth incident, similar OAuth token compromise for Salesforce to revoke token access across 200 instances, illustrating how one overprivileged app grant became a RBAC blast radius problem. Red Hat Consulting GitLab breach, compromised self-hosted GitLab instances, exposed customer engineering records containing VPN configs, credentials, and network diagrams, effectively handing over customer access blueprints and machine identities. And Coinbase support sourcing incident, insider contract abuse at an overseas support provider, exposed tens of thousands of Coinbase customer records, highlighting privileged support roles and weak controls of BPO process. So again, I just wanted to sort of tie it back to sort of some real world, actually, of these breaches, and that all, to your point, came from identity being the breach.
And also, Filipa, here's the big shift I want to leave you with. If 2025 was the year attackers mastered authentication bypass, sessions, hijacking, reverse token abuse, adversary in the middle phishing, then the 2026 is when they'll optimize authorization abuse, because as they're valid, the question becomes, can they assign roles, consent apps, create keys, export data, or pivot through integrations? That's why we suggest the 90 days should be prioritize authentication controls, reduce standing privilege, implement just-in-time and privilege access management, and to lock down admin consents and auth scopes, inventory non-human identities, and alert on role change, consent events, and abnormal blank access. So, for my opinion, yes, the 2026, it's not the authentication, but the authorization.
Next question, and tied to that, can we sort of expand on social engineering and how social engineering kind of ties into this? And I'm thinking this is kind of predates 2025, but there was a huge breach in Las Vegas in the United States and the casinos. I think MGM was part of it, but I think it hit several casinos. And it really just started with a customer service person, like a front desk person, and somebody kind of was able to use social engineering to say, hey, I lost my credentials. Can you help me regain them? And those people are not necessarily trained with a security mindset. They're trained with a customer service mindset, which is someone needs help, you help them. And can we sort of expand to sort of where this intersects with social engineering?
Social engineering is breach happen when attackers hack people and processes, not systems, to get access, approvals, or secrets. So they collect information from LinkedIn company websites, breach who's finance, IT, HR, vendors you use, executives' names, travel, time zones, your ticketing, help desk process. Uh, Common hooks could be doc shared, invoice, MFA reset, or urgent HR policy. Phishing, just to mention, it's hey, hi, I'm from IT, or your vendor or your CEO, or it's missing, let's say, from SMS fake security alerts or delivery payment messages. Could be Teams or Slack impersonation. Can you approve this quickly? Or like say before, deep face voice for exec fraud or help desk pressure. The aims from my credentials, user pass, MFA code, sessions, cookies, token, and device code or OAuth consents. As in, the, as in they request assigned roles or themselves to groups, create OAuth apps or consents to high scores, create mailbox rules, forwarding or author refresh tokens, generate API keys, access keys, or access server drives, share exports, pivot to admin or non-human identities, service principles, and data theft or exterminations, or ransomware after a privilege escalation. That's they were.
So what I'm hearing and is that all of these things that we do in cybersecurity all kind of are very integrated because, like you said, if identity is the breach and they're getting into a system, then we need to sort of live with sort of this of zero trust, so trust no one, and to make sure that we're also least privilege. So once someone's in the system, that they're not getting access to more than they should, so that if someone is breaching someone's identity, that that person didn't just have access to everything within the company and the organization or the files or the data, but that making sure that all of your data inside your system is appropriately encrypted or masked or protected and just least privilege. So even if someone's in, they don't get access to everything. They get access to the person's identity who they've breached, but that person's access to the entire system is still quite limited. Would that be an appropriate way of sort of managing kind of how we're thinking about protecting the data
Mhm.
within a system?
So, as an attacker is inside, the breach is no longer about entry, it becomes about time, privilege, and the visibility. So, if the hacker sees the damage is determined by what the identity is allowed it to do and how fast you detect it. So, you must prioritize first, don't kick out to reuse uh, stolen session refresh tokens, to register new MFS devices if allowed it, to create a OAuth to grant themselves consent, add email rules for forwarding, create additional access paths like API keys, service principals. This is why session revocation, the MFA re-registration matter so much. The phase two, this is and the most dangerous phase, they escalate authorizations. They look for overprivileged roles like global admin, owner, editor, contributor rights, to have the ability to assign roles or modify. identity access management policies, and permission to export data with mailboxes, or access to secret keys, to secrets, keys, or CI/CD pipelines. If authorization is loose, escalation after trivial. So, uh, and let's say that for the phase three, they explore quickly, like 2 hours a day. They behave like a real user, like browse a SharePoint driver, query to CRM, HR, ticketing systems, or read email history, look for sensitive docs, or enumerate cloud resources. They avoid malware, they avoid noise, and they look legitimately. Most orgs miss this phase completely. Um, they exfiltrate data like when ready. They bulk export data, download mailboxes, sync drives, use APIs fast and hard to notice, states data extremely. And the final phase is before leaving. They try to leave backdoors, pivot to other users or tenants, reuse secrets found in data, and extrapolate or return quickly. This is why some breaches return months later.
Hmm. Well, that goes back to the living off the land concept, right? Where people just are, they're doing their thing and they're just completely, the breach is completely undetected. Is that what you're saying?
Um,
We're talking about where they're just sort of, so detection is key.
yes, the detection is the key. Correct, correct,
And
correct.
this is also, we can say, where, we'll talk about as we go into for our additional sessions about there's AI is increasing the ability of the attackers, but it's also increasing the defense. One talk that I'd gone to, I really liked what they said, where they just kind of, just it's that pattern recognition of one of these things is not like the other. And so using AI to be able to sort of see that if a user normally is doing a certain thing, and then it can detect, okay, that's different. And same thing for data filtration and other things that I think AI can really help with the defense of this as well.
I totally agree with you. Correct. Totally agree with you.
But we're also still humans, and I think that that's probably like what I'm in preparing for this. I think one of the biggest takeaways was as sophisticated as things are getting, both in the attacks and the tools, we as human beings still have to always put the basics in place. We still oftentimes like don't do the basic things, like some of the breaches we were just talking about. They just didn't have MFA in place. They just didn't limit those tokens. They didn't do some very, very basic foundational things. So I think it's like it's kind of a bifurcated thing. There's a big, there's some very sophisticated stuff happening, but there's also some very basic stuff that needs to continue to happen. Is that I'll leave the closing words with you as we wrap out this session. Constantinos, I was saying I'll leave the closing words
I'm
for
sorry. I'm
yourself.
sorry. So sorry. I have some issues with my connection. I'm so sorry. So
Oh,
thank you everyone for joining us, and let's meet us in the next session regarding the defense that worked, the detection, containment, and the recovery wins.
fantastic. All right, I've popped that link in the chat and also shared on Luma, and look forward to seeing everybody in the next session. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Great session. Thank you.